Hello and welcome to Labor Talks. Today's special guest is Mahlon Mitchell. Mahlon serves as the president of the Wisconsin State Firefighters Association and is president of the Madison Local as well. Welcome to Labor Talks, Mahlon.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Can you tell the viewers a little bit about you?
Well, again, my name is Mahlon Mitchell. I've been a firefighter for the last 20 years in the city of Madison. I'm a lieutenant there. I was actually born in Milwaukee. I guess going backwards, I was born in Milwaukee. My family grew up in Delavan, Wisconsin. And now I reside in the Madison area with my family. My wife's a flight attendant for Delta. I've been a firefighter for 20 years. I have a daughter who's a freshman at UW Oshkosh in college. And I have a son who's in 8th grade middle school. So yeah, we love Madison, been there for 20 years and enjoy it living there.
Nice city. Nice city.
Yeah.
Explain, if you could, the makeup of the Professional Firefighters of Wisconsin.
So the Professional Firefighters of Wisconsin, we're an affiliate of the International Association of Firefighters. I've been president since 2011. I've been on the board since 2009. We make up about a little bit over 4,000 career firefighters. So all our firefighters are those that work as a fire department on a career department. About 60 locals and about 100 communities across the state. We're in pretty much all 72 counties but one. So we have locals and departments as far north as Superior and as far south as Beloit, Kenosha, Racine.
And I know that the local here in Eau Claire is also part of the Professional Firefighters.
They are, yep.
So we work with them pretty closely with our council and things. So
yeah, good group out here.
A lot of times we get them in to do the cooking, you know.
We're good at cooking. You gotta eat, right?
You gotta eat. Now I know a lot of people think that the firefighters were left out of Act 10. Can you please explain to the viewers how Act 10 affected the firefighters? So
we were left out of Act 10, the budget repair bill, and being left out, being exempt with police. So the changes initially didn't affect us. But Act 32, which was Governor Walker's big budget that came later, that's where they actually came after us in regards to health care plan and design was the term. And essentially what plan and design is, we went to court, and before we actually got a ruling from the courts, they made a legislative fix to say actually what plan and design is. And essentially we cannot bargain over co-pays and deductibles, but we can still bargain over the premium share. But as you know, with health insurance, the premium share is based upon the co-pay deductible amounts. So a lot of municipalities use that as a bargaining chip, or more like a bargaining bully pulpit, where they say either give us concessions with A, B, and C, or we're going to give you a health care plan you can't afford. So we've had a lot of locals and a lot of firefighters who have been threatened with high cost deductibles, almost just casualty health insurance. So it's been tough. It's been a real challenge, and we still do retain the majority of our collective bargaining rights, but you take a big chip away and off the table like health insurance, and it becomes very, very hard to bargain in good faith.
Well, and I know, because from working with you guys, I know of certain locals that are on, like you said, $7,500 out-of-pocket deductibles.
Yeah. Most
young working families, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, La Crosse, I believe, has a $9,000 family deductible, and yeah, I mean, there are people literally taking loans out to have children, to have babies, because their deductible is so high. So it's unfortunate. We've been able to work with municipalities, and we even tried to get a legislative fix with the Republican legislature to try to get them to give us some relief there, but hasn't happened. So we're dealing with it. You know, you got to keep pressing on. Every day is a new battle. Right.
I know that the local here in Eau Claire had a few that worked at the airport, but I remember them saying that they lost their protective status.
Yeah.
What does that mean to the firemen when they lose their protective status?
So what they lost is when they wrote Act 10, they did not deem every fire entity public safety. So essentially what they're saying is, which they are, the people at the airport, we say they're public safety because they are. I mean, they're protecting the public at the airport. But the legislature did not deem them public safety. So most of the departments that are at the airport are not deemed public safety because of Act 10, and they're with AFSCME, a lot of them. So they've been trying to get a legislative fix as well, to make sure we deem them as public safety. Some of the problems were with the correctional officers as well, got taken out of the protective status.
Jailers.
Yep, the jailers. So that's something that has affected groups like that in a bad way. There's another group, the third service paramedics. They're essentially are those that just do paramedics and EMT calls. And they were originally taken or thrown into Act 10, but we were actually able to go back to the legislature and get them to be exempt as well. But yeah, it's been real difficult. And it's difficult in the state having a two-tier system. I mean, we should never had Act 10. I mean, I think everyone should be able to collectively bargain. To be able to sit down with your employer at a table like this and talk about hours, wages, working conditions, health and safety. I mean, every employee should be able to do that because it only benefits the employer and the employee. In our case, it benefits the municipality or the town or village because we don't come to the table saying, give us this, or we strike. We don't even have the ability by state law to strike. We're coming to the table to have creative compromise, talk about how we can do what's best for not just us as employees, but what we can do what's best for the city. And at the end of the day, the employer or the chiefs in our case, and us as firefighters, our job in the back of our mind should always be that we are doing what's best for the community, whether you're a chief or the city bargaining against the union. And that's what we're doing. It's called collective bargaining for a reason. We're doing it collectively.
Collectively.
Yes, it's not a us versus them.
No. And it's really sad to see people that don't believe that that needs to be done, that the safety issues. We were talking with someone earlier about how the whistleblower laws are being lessened and the OSHA is being lessened and the things that are to give us...
Child labor laws are being lessened.
Child labor laws are being lessened. And that's not a win-win.
No.
When they take all that away.
Well, they're rolling back hundreds of years of labor protections in our state. I mean, state of Wisconsin, this is where AFSCME started. When we first had the first collective bargaining bill, it was called the Employer-Employee Peace Act because it did bring about workplace peace. So it was good. Employers wanted it. Communities wanted it, actually. And we were partners at the bargaining table. The state of Wisconsin had one of the best and most comprehensive collective bargaining laws in the country. And all those protections for working people have been rolled back. Not because of fiscal responsibility, it's because of politics. And the governor did it just so that he could try to stomp out his political enemies, in his opinion.
In his opinion.
He wanted to divide and conquer. He said that down in Janesville when he was talking to Diane Hendricks, that he was going to divide and conquer the state, and that's exactly what he's done. As my mom always said, and Maya Angelou said, if someone tells you who they are, you better believe them. So the Governor Walker, he's shown us what he wants to do, and he's done it. Unfortunately, he's been somewhat successful at it as well.
Hopefully, we can turn it back around.
That was a long answer to your short question.
But
I'm sorry.
It worked. I'm on Village Board where I live too, and I know that a lot of people also don't realize the amount of money and time that goes into training someone. And then if they don't have what they feel they need to be a productive person in that town, they're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be in a town or village that is just a training ground for somebody else.
Right. And when you talk about other protections that have been put in place for private sector employees, right to work, prevailing wage, project laborers agreements, just cause provisions. Speaking of training, private sector unions, they do a whole heck of a lot of training. And they save taxpayers and companies and contractors a lot of money because with those union dues, it pays for their health insurance, their pension, as well as the training requirements they need based upon OSHA standards or COM 30 in our state. So there's a lot of things that go into what labor unions do and how we service our members and service the community. On the flip side of that, or another issue is when you're talking about school districts and you talk about training and being a breeding ground for people to leave. When we go to a merit-based pay system, like what teachers are happening, you will see, one, people are leaving. They're going further north. They're going to Minnesota because that's where the opportunities are. Another thing is you're not getting teachers that have tenure anymore because they're not staying at places where they need, because there's no opportunities there. So we have seen, and I've dealt with and talked with AFT leadership, where people are leaving smaller rural communities to try to go where they can make more money. And that's a problem. Like a place like Solon Springs had a referendum this past election cycle just to keep the lights on. Not to put another wing on a school, or not to build a gymnasium, or not for books or teacher salaries. It was just to pay the essential bills that they needed to pay just to keep their school open.
And you see more and more of the small rural schools merging
Yes.
for extracurricular programs and other things. And where I live, I'm 15 minutes from the border. So a lot of those people are like, you know what, if the state isn't going to respect me as a teacher, I can go 15 minutes more and get a job across the state lines. And they're doing it.
Well, that's where the opportunities are. And we have to get back. I mean, how do you not respect teachers? Like I said, I have a child in 8th grade, a daughter that's a freshman at UW-Oshkosh. How do you not respect the people that are teaching our kids? Like our kids are our greatest commodity, if you want to look at it that way, for our future. I mean, we're all going to get up in age eventually, and I'm going to need my kids to take care of me, and I don't want them to be out of the state. I want my daughter, after she's done with college, to be able to stay in the state because there's opportunities here. I don't want her to move to Minnesota. No, that's obviously her wish, but if she wants to do that, but I'd like to keep my kids close to home. And right now, you just don't see that
That's not happening.
People are leaving.
And they're not going to school to be teachers either in this state.
No.
They're going to do something else.
Yeah, teachers aren't being respected, and we got to get back to respecting teachers. I don't think that's a novel idea. That's pretty simple.
Now, I know this too. Cancer appears to be the #1 line of duty cause of death for our firefighters.
It is.
What resources are available for area members if it's needed?
Well, if you go to our website, the pffw.org, we have a link that talks about health and wellness, health and safety, and we have a lot of cancer prevention tips, as well as best practices to prevent cancer. But cancer is the #1 killer of firefighters, not just in the state of Wisconsin, but that's nationwide. We lose about 1 firefighter per year to occupational cancer. It's really quite the epidemic right now for us. The #1 killer used to be heart disease because of the nature of our jobs, waking up, going and elevated activity just like that, because the sound of the bell going off, we wake up, that's the worst time for your heart. But really cancer is taking over, unfortunately, because the way buildings are built with cheaper plastics and the toxins that can permeate through our gear is really a heartache, and it's really tough for us. So that we have best practices we need to do. There's things like taking a shower within an hour after you come out of a fire. We have to wash our gear now a lot more. We have what's called fire wipes, so we wipe down our face and our necks, because that's where a lot of exposed skin is when we're in a fire. So there's a lot of things that we can do. At the federal level, as a union president, my job is also to lobby not just here in the state or advance the interests of firefighters through legislation in the state, but also at the federal level for firefighters back here in Wisconsin. So we actually are working on a Firefighter Cancer registry, which will help with research as well as best practices for our members and our firefighters across the state and the country for the future.
And I know that you said your daughter's in college in Oshkosh. How hard is it for a working family to send a child to university, and what problems are they facing in regards to tuition costs? Well,
we have over, I think, 1 million people in the state of Wisconsin that have high tuition, have loan debt. So it's tough. It's not cheap, and we have in-state tuition. My daughter also runs track at UW-Oshkosh. But it's tough because there's a lot, with the rise in costs of just daily living expenses and wages kind of staying stagnant. It's tough for a middle-class family to send their child to college, but she's got to realize what student loan debt is eventually, and unfortunately. But nowadays it is worth the money, I believe. And we need to do something though in our state to help with, we need loan forgiveness programs, and especially for like teachers that are giving back to our communities that are getting out of college with huge amount of loan debt. That also is an economic development issue because that's less money that they're pumping into our economy. It's more money they're using to pay off high student loan debt. So that's a huge issue that's happening in the state, has a lot of focus around the country. And we need to look at student loan debt and do something here in the state for our folks that are our kids who can't buy houses or even afford to, have a job or health care because they're student loan debt. So when I go around the state, I hear that all the time.
So that's something we need to work on. Now, you've decided to run for governor
I
for
did.
Wisconsin.
One of, I think there's 20,000 of us right now in the race.
What do you feel are the biggest challenges that working families have faced in a Walker-run state?
Well, low wages. I mean, the economy, the middle class, and those that live below middle class wages, we are the economy. We are the drivers of the economy. But when we have low wages, when we have people working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, that's not a state where we can thrive. We're lacking opportunity in the state of Wisconsin. And there's a whole slew of things that have happened since Governor Walker has been in office for the last 8 years, almost 8 years, that these austerity measures, this cut, and giving money to big dollar corporations and thinking it's going to somehow trickle down to the rest of us it's just wrong.
Which we know doesn't work.
Well, I mean, it defies logic, it defies history, and common sense, quite frankly, because it doesn't make any sense. So we have to make sure in this next election that we take a serious look at our state and how we can change it around and make opportunities for all, not just a select few. So the governor's had 8 years to bring us together, to do what he's wanted to do for the state, and all it is, again, is divide and conquer. He's had 8 years. He ran for president, which God bless him for that. I mean, that's a huge undertaking. It didn't go so well, but he did it. But now, essentially, we're his plan B. In the fire service, we call it a contingency plan. He wants year 9, year 10, year 11, and year 12. And it's just time for us to turn a page. It's time for us to have real leadership to state government, and that's why I'm running. We need an executive that can work with both sides of the aisle, quite frankly, because we're going to have more than likely a Republican legislature. Yeah, I'm going to work like hell to make sure we have a Dem. We see what happened to SD10.
I live in SD10.
There you go. So
20 years it's taken us.
So it can work. So we see how it works, and we're going to take that success, take that wave, so to speak, take that momentum, and hopefully ride that into November of 2018. And I want to be the candidate, and I think I am the candidate to bring the urban-rural divide, bridge that gap, but also get people out that have normally not voted in the past to come out and exercise their right to vote.
Right to vote. Do you feel that working families have been fairly represented in Wisconsin government?
No. You want me to expound on that? I mean, that's okay. Hell no. I mean, no. We haven't. I mean, that's Governor Walker doesn't care about working families. Governor Walker cares about his next political move. And everything he does is for his next political move or his political ambition. So it's not about Wisconsin or working families. It's about politics. So that's what I want to do, get it back about people.
People.
Yeah, and put people over politics.
And what issues are the most important that you feel we as a state need to focus on?
Well, we could talk about that for 30 minutes alone, but right away off the bat, again, raising wages, economic development, but things that are really hurting people when we talk about the economy or living paycheck to paycheck is health care. Like, we didn't take the federal dollars for the Medicaid expansion. So we're not trying to insure, and Governor Walker's not trying to insure more people and make it more affordable. That's a real problem. There should never be a time where an elderly person or a senior citizen has to decide between getting their prescription drugs filled or paying their rent or mortgage. My mother's a diabetic. There should never be a time where a child doesn't go to the hospital because their parents can't afford it. I mean, we can provide it, and in our state, we need to make sure that everyone has not just the access. You'll hear a lot of Republicans talk about the access to health care. No, health care is a right, and we need to make sure that everyone has that right. Education's the big thing. The governor took $1.6 billion from public education in 2012 in his first budget. And now he's put $638 million back because he's running for office. And he's going around the state touting at his budget signing that he's making record investments in public education.
He's taken so much away, he isn't making a dent.
No, I mean, that I'm not a mathematician, but according to those numbers, we're still $1 billion short. So
I believe it was about $13 a household.
Yeah.
Is what he gave us back.
Yeah.
That's what, one school book? Not even?
Well, yeah, I mean, doing what he did is like taking a knife, sticking it at 8, as a wise man once said, taking a knife, sticking it 8 inches my back, pulling it out 4, and now we're supposed to say thank you. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. We need to adequately and properly fund schools. Again, that's the greatest commodity, and our kids' greatest currency is their education. Infrastructure and roads. We drove up here from Madison today. I was in Waukesha earlier this morning. I mean, our roads, quite frankly, they suck. I mean, we are 49th in the country, the 49th worst roads in the country.
Eau Claire County's highway commissioner said that the DOT has received a D grade from voters on the state of our highways. And I drive them all the time too, and that's definitely about where they are.
Yeah, and we're bonding now more than ever to pay for our roads instead of just handling the problem now and fixing the problem right now. We're cut, borrow, borrow, just so he can say that we've never raised any taxes, and now you're going to get $28 back, I think, per household average next year. I mean, keep my $28 and pay for roads. Keep my $28 and give someone proper health care. Keep my $28 and pay for schools. I mean, that's where our money needs to be going. We're a society. And if we want to live in a good society and have a good quality of life, we have to pay for it. Everyone's going to pay taxes. I pay property taxes too. It's not about the taxes we pay. It's about what the state does with the tax dollars that we send them.
That we give them.
And we're just not seeing a return on our investment right now.
Do you feel that deals like the Foxconn deal are good for Wisconsin?
Foxconn's a bad deal. What's it doing for the area up here?
Nothing.
Right. So looks like it's going to be $4.4 billion right now. There's no bank that would make that deal, that would give you $4.4 billion to see a return on investment 25 years later. If we invest in the things we just talked about, healthcare, education, our infrastructure, we will have companies want to come to Wisconsin because we have the best worker, we have great natural resources, and we have a great quality of life. I mean, before someone comes to your house, you clean it. So we need to actually have our house in order, our house cleaned here in the state, and then companies will want to come here. And you look at Foxconn and the $4 billion they're going to get. Well, what about Tyson Foods in Jefferson? 450 jobs gone just like that. What about Oscar Mayer? Family-sustaining generational jobs in Dane County, gone just like that. There's over 1,000 jobs. Look at the paper mills in Wausau area.
Stevens Point, Wisconsin Rapids. Wisconsin Rapids lost 1,000 jobs.
Right.
A town like that size can't survive losing 1,000 jobs.
Right, and look at Appleton Coating. You look at, and a lot of these paper mills are actually cutting down shifts. So people are going home not making as much money. So again, it's low wages. It's austerity measures that are crippling us. And we can't do that. It's not sustainable. We have to invest in Wisconsin again. And that's why I'm running for governor, because I just, I'm sick of seeing where our state is going. I was born here. I want my kids to live here and thrive here. And that's not going to happen under Governor Walker.
And how do you feel about the trains?
Which trains?
The ones that he turned away?
Oh, that's ridiculous. Again, it's infrastructure. When you build a high-speed rail, and you want to talk about Foxconn, that probably would have ran right through Foxconn. I mean, when you have $810 million that we send back to the federal government because we can't afford the operating cost, but we can afford to give Foxconn $4 billion. Not only when you do high-speed rail would it connect us to Minneapolis, would it connect us to Chicago and Illinois, places where it would create hubs around different areas of the state where people would congregate. And again, that's more infrastructure. That's an investment in the state.
And it also would have taken a load off the highways.
Yes.
Put them on the trains.
Right. And again, what was that about? That was about politics. It wasn't about the people of the state of Wisconsin.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, we're going to hit the entire state. When I announced we started in Green Bay, We went to Milwaukee, Madison in the next week. We went to Wausau. We came here to Eau Claire, right down the street, actually. We had an event, and went to La Crosse. So there are a lot of people in the race. I think, I hope that everyone pays attention to who's in the race. And this is a fight. We're in a fight for our lives right now. We have what they call the fierce urgency of now to win this thing and turn our state around. But we have to believe in the capacity for change. We have to believe that we can give opportunities to everybody. There are a lot of bad politicians right now that are being put in office by good people who don't vote. So I believe I'm the candidate that's going to get people out to vote, get people excited, but not just excited about a dream or hope, but actually excited about what we're going to do. So if you go to mahlonmitchell.com, we're going to have policy initiatives. We're going to be talking about the state and how we turn this thing around. So I'm asking for folks to believe in me, but more importantly, I'm asking them to believe in themselves and that we can turn this thing around, we can work together, and together we rise. And
we wish you all the best.
Thank you. Is that an endorsement?
From me personally?
Just kidding.
Well, that's today's program. My thanks to our viewing audience and to Mahlon, who made today's program possible. We wish you, like I said, we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
My thanks also to our folks that are working behind our cameras, who not only make the show possible, but give us an outlet for our union voices or our working family voices. A final note, Labor Talks is on channel 993 twice weekly, and you can also use your favorite search engines with keywords CVC TV and Labor Talks, and you can find us on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in today.
Television is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, you can contact us by calling 715-839-5067 or on the web at www.cvctv.org.